Hello and welcome to FFRF's Ask an Atheist. I'm Dan Barker. I'm co-president of the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
And I'm Amit Pal, Communications Director of the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
So it's nice to see you again. Is this the first time we've seen each other like in person?
Yes,
like in a year?
Since the pandemic began.
And we're both fully vaccinated?
Absolutely.
So it's almost kind of getting back to normal, right?
So, yes, sort of.
So what a topic today. Today on Ask an Atheist, we're going to be looking at the COVID apocalypse. I almost said, what, apocalypse? That the Hindu nationalist government of Prime Minister Narendra Modi has helped to bring about in India. And Amit, so we're talking about India. You have a personal connection with India. You have family there, right?
Yes, Dan. My roots are in India. I partly grew up there, and my mother-in-law, and other close family members are still in India. So this has worried me to no end. This mega tragedy where officially every day is setting a new global record of cases, 350,000 or so yesterday. Death toll, 3,000. Experts are saying...
Per day, you mean?
Per day.
Yeah.
And experts are saying that's an undercount by a factor of 5 to 10. In other words, the actual death toll may be as high as 30,000 people dying of COVID every day in India.
Wow. Does your family have any connection with anyone who's been sick? Or?
Yes, my cousin and his wife got sick. Thankfully, he's my youngest cousin, so he's younger, much younger than us, and he's recovering. But I've heard of others in the extended family getting very sick, and others in the larger, really large sort of family circle dying of COVID too.
And they must know people also.
Yes, absolutely. My mother keeps on hearing of such instances regularly now.
Wow. So we're talking about India, and this is Ask an Atheist, so you may have some questions today. If you do, you can post them in the Facebook comments there, Facebook chat, or you can send an email to askanatheist@ffrf.org. We're going to talk a little bit more about India, and then we'll take your questions in a few minutes. So what's the connection here? Modi, of course, is pushing Hindu nationalism, kind of like how Trump was pushing Christian nationalism in our country. And the people loved Modi for a while. And is religion contributing at all to this COVID mega catastrophe?
Yes, Dan. So unlike Trump, who was so cynical in his acquiescence to Christian nationalism, Modi actually believes in that stuff. He has grown up in the Hindutva, or the political Hindu movement, the RSS, the fountainhead of Hindu nationalism, since he was 8 years old. And so he has that mindset. And so at several levels, the Hindu nationalist ideology has contributed to the catastrophe which is befalling India right now. He and the person in charge of this mountain state allowed this huge Ganges festival, which is meant to take place every 12 years and was not even supposed to happen this year. But get this, because the astrological alignment was all auspicious, so to speak, they let it go ahead. Millions bathed, more than almost 2,000 cases. One of the head sages died. And a number of other people, politicians, prominent personalities, ordinary people have gotten infected. Has taught them nothing. They are promising that other pilgrimages will quite certainly be allowed to take place. Let's hope they change their minds.
So these deaths that we're looking at here, these burials and cremations, many of them are directly connected to a religious sentiment.
Yes. At least some of them, absolutely.
Wow.
Although, of course, nationwide, it completely depends. Yeah.
So, from my point of view, all these Hindu gods and all that seem a little, I don't know, they're not believable. I mean, there's so many of them, and they're all over, and it doesn't seem like a real coherent type of religious theology because there's so many different states. But does Modi really think that these gods and these astrological powers are actually making a difference in India or in the whole world?
Well, we'd have to ask him, but a lot of people in that movement, of that mindset, actually believe in that sort of stuff. It's bad enough when people allow their personal lives to be governed by such things, including many, many in my family, who, and I won't be more specific. But when you allow astrology to govern national policy, that becomes a disaster on a scale and a level that shouldn't even be allowed anywhere. And that's the problem here.
You know, I debated a Hindu Vedic astrologer a few years ago. He was from, what's the big city in the south?
Chennai.
Yeah, he's from Chennai.
Yeah.
And he was in his 60s, and he said, astrology works. I don't know if there's actually such a thing as Vedic astrology, or is it just a word they made up? He said, astrology works, but it only works if you pay for it.
Okay. That completely makes sense.
And if you don't pay for it, that means you're not committed.
Yeah.
And of course, he's making a living.
Sure.
I mean, there must be, what, thousands of these astrologers?
Oh, they have to be. As I said, Dan, bad enough when people believe in them on a personal level, but policy making?
Yeah.
Come on. A nation that was founded as a secular state by somebody we at FFRF admire so much, Jawaharlal Nehru.
Yeah.
Exactly. A person with a scientific, rationalist, free-thinking mindset. And now that one of his successors is a person like this, it's just absolutely shameful.
Wow. Well, it shows you the dangers of irrational thinking,
Absolutely.
I guess, how people get caught up in all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, as a Christian minister, I believed in faith and faith healing, and I believed in laying hands on people. I mean, I was a little bit nuts, until I saw the light.
Yeah. I don't think Modi will go on the same path as you. I very much doubt it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So, in the populace, is there... do they take to these quack cures and healings and other alternative medicines to cure COVID?
Absolutely, Dan. That's another aspect of it. This fascination with Ayurveda, which is this ancient Hindu medical questionable science. So, for example, there is this god-man called Ramdev, kind of analogous to Pat Robertson, but a medical empire that Pat Robertson would make him eat his heart out, released a medicine called, I'm not making this up, Coronil, which 2 cabinet ministers attended the release of.
What is it?
It's a tablet that's meant to sort of cure you of COVID. I'm not making this up.
But is it a chemical, or is it you don't know what it is?
It's Ayurveda, so they don't use modern sort of medicine. I don't know what's the composition of its, protected or whatever, secret or whatever. I didn't look into that. But no, it's a tablet. And he was claiming the World Health Organization, had endorsed it, which was complete lies. And he was claiming the Indian Medical Association had endorsed it, which is also a lie. But 2 cabinet ministers of Modi present at the release of the medicine gives it a cachet and legitimacy which should not be provided. Again, Nehru's cabinet ministers would not be present at the release of such a thing. They'd be focusing on how to fight the pandemic instead of, again, another example, Modi's health minister chastising government scientists earlier this week. You are not looking deep enough into the curative properties of the cow.
The cow.
The cow, yes. And it has to be done by the 75th anniversary of India's independence. So, and the pandemic is no excuse. They've given the program a really funky name, which I have to tell our viewers. Sutra pick. Sutra, the Kama
From
Sutra.
the Kama Sutra?
Yes. Sutra means discourse or treatise, and PIC. So it's scientific utilization. I memorized this, dear viewers, just for you. Scientific utilization through research augmentation into the properties, the something properties of the indigenous cow.
So PIC.
PIC.
Properties of the
indigenous cow, yes.
Is that just an informal thing, or is that a government?
It's a government program.
Wow.
Wow, exactly. Again, I mean, it's completely contravening the secular ideals and scientific temper that India was supposed to be founded upon.
Well, I suppose if you're starving to death and you eat a hamburger, I mean, there's some curative.
Yeah.
But then they don't eat the cows.
I don't think that's what they're getting at when he was scolding his government scientists. That's not quite what he was getting at.
So didn't he also say the water in the Ganges has curative?
Yes. So the person in charge of that small state, which is near my family's home state, and we'll get to my family's home state in just a bit, and the person who's in charge, said, nobody needs to worry. Mother Ganges' holy waters are blessed, and so nobody needs to worry about the pandemic or the coronavirus.
Wow.
You see, I mean, it's just incredible. And as I said, perhaps we can bring the picture up of that person. The person in charge of the largest state in India, my family's home state, a state with 200 million people, is a Hindu cleric and the head of a hardline, right-wing monastic order, which is completely regressive and hostile toward India's minorities. This is the state, excuse the bad pun, the state of India today.
So do you know his name?
Yes, of course. It's Yogi is the honorific, Yogi Bear.
Yogi?
Exactly. And then Adityanath is the name.
Yogi Adityanath.
Yes, exactly.
So he's wearing that saffron
colored robe that Hindu clerics,
like the priests will wear those.
Yeah, exactly. And he's always dressed like, and with that religious mark on his forehead, as you can see. So completely steeped, I mean, unashamedly, unabashedly in Hindu clericalness, I suppose. And as I say, Pakistan was founded as a religious state, and to my knowledge, no in charge of a state there has been a Muslim cleric. There's a lot of influence they have behind the scenes, but you see what I'm saying? And the irony is that the most important state in a secular country is now governed by somebody of that background.
So this Yogi said the Mother Ganges can heal.
No, not Yogi. It was a neighboring states in charge.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
So what happened? Bruce, can you show the Ganges picture again? So these people did go to this festival, and they did bathe in this. So what happened after that?
They were meant to be tested for corona, etc., but then they were tested afterwards.
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds of cases. And then I don't know if there's been any medical follow-up, or were they allowed to go back home the way they were. I mean, there's so much of a shortage of everything. I mean, I can't even begin to describe how calamitous the situation is, from oxygen to hospital beds to doctors. I mean, they didn't prepare at all, because Modi was so basking in his triumphalism, telling the World Economic Forum, virtually of course, in January, we have this controlled. And his health minister saying, it seems like we are in the end game. That the coronavirus task force did not meet in February or March. This is the amount of neglect.
So, ignoring the COVID catastrophe, could the Indian medical establishment have handled a crisis like this if they had paid attention? Was there enough resources there?
They would have to, Dan, and this is where the amping up and the preparation comes in. They would have to. Second time around, of course, they had a year to prepare. The opposition leader in charge, not coincidentally, Nehru's great-grandson, was warning them since February of 2020. Hopefully they would have prepared. It wouldn't have been perfect. I'm not going to sort of, engage in kind of rosy-eyed analysis, but hopefully it would have been better than this. It certainly couldn't have been worse.
We have a picture of Modi at his big rally here.
Yes, another contributor decided to go ahead with elections in key states. Modi, as you can see, appearing there without a mask, unmasked crowds. In Bengal, very important state, where Kolkata, what used to be known as Calcutta, is the capital of. And again, cases spiking in these 3 or 4
But he
states.
seems to be standing quite a ways from the crowd there.
Yes, of course. He won't take chances.
He wouldn't get that. How deep is his faith in the Hindu deities? But
yes.
So that crowd of people there is contributing to the spread of the...
Yes, very much so.
So religion's a big part of it, but is it just sort of general irrationality also contributing to the...
Well, people, Dan, as in the rest of the world, to be fair to the Indian population, they've just grown so fatigued. Now, it's been a year plus now. And initially, there was a strong lockdown. The problem was they were getting bad signals from the leadership too. If the leadership is saying that we have this under control, you're like, well, then why do I need to mask up? You're telling me to mask up and at the same time saying that you have this under control. So mixed signals contributed to the kind of the overconfidence of the population too. There's no doubt.
But they're not all like that. Are some of your relatives vaccinated?
My mother is, my mother-in-law is, both shots, AstraZeneca. So yes, and the vaccination thing is another crisis. Initially, people managed to get the shots, but Modi, in another trope drawn from Hinduism, I am the global sage, the global seer, and hence I will distribute India's vaccines to other countries. Great idea, until and unless you have a shortage back home.
Yeah, so that's what happened, right?
That's what's happening now.
So India's producing massive amounts that they don't have enough to take care of their own people
Yes.
then.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, just incredible. And so the United States is sending AstraZeneca to India. Yeah.
Coming back around again.
Coming back around again, absolutely.
Wow. So what is the U.S., how's the U.S. treating or reacting to India's problem right now?
Well, initially, it was a bit slow. Maybe because that's the conspiracy theory. I don't know if it's true. I hope it isn't. Because Modi and Trump were very close. It was meant to be a bit of payback for that. I hope not. And then again, I hope that fact that Vice President Kamala Devi Harris, on purpose I'm taking her full name, is partly Indian American. She was focusing on that too. Slightly belatedly, they have offered to help, sent vaccines. They're blocking vaccine raw materials from India. They're sending those too now. They're not bending, however, on the issue of patenting of medicine. Because, so far at least, because there's a battle between the developing countries and the West over taking away under emergency situations of the patent for the vaccine so that can be much more freely manufactured. That battle is still going on. But on the other fronts, the United States is certainly stepping in to help now.
So what do you think is going to happen in the next few months?
Well, I spoke with my uncle, for example, and he was optimistic, and I hope it's not false optimism. Look, Dan, I mean, anybody would be embarrassed by this. And anybody would be, I mean, you can't not react now. I mean, it's been just, so India, Modi's notion and his followers' notion was, I'm going to take it to the level of the next superpower. And here India is now the object of global sympathy and pity. So they have to respond. The question is, can they keep up? And it'll take time to ramp up the efforts. And so I think the next days and weeks will be still calamitous. But beyond that, I'm hoping that things have to improve.
Is Modi's star starting to fall?
Oh, anecdotally, very much so, Dan. We'll see in elections to come. The only thing that can save him is, I would encourage people to see our show when he got elected in 2019. The next elections are in 2024. So 3 years from now. So let's see if people remember and punish him for this.
So you're telling me there's a huge turnout in India's elections?
Oh, yes, the poor especially. Yes, they have a huge stake.
Like in the U.S.,
2/3.
In the U.S., what do we have? About 160 million turnout. But what did they have in India?
900 plus million electorate, 600 plus million turned out.
600 million turned out.
Plus, yes, turned out in the 2019 elections, of which Modi's party only got 40% or so, which means viewers, 60% of India do not buy into his image. The problem is, so to speak, it's a multi-party system, and hence the vote gets divided among his party, the BJP's opponents, in all sorts of ways, regional, national, to the left, to the right, that sort of thing. Yeah.
So Modi actually got more votes than the entire American voters if you put them all together.
Yes, yes, very much so.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So this is something to be watching. I mean, it's tragic. It's sad. You know, we're seeing deaths all over the world, and when you see those cremations of
Yes.
people, in when they get to the hospital, even the battle is not over because of the resources.
Oh, not at all, because nothing is available there. I mean, yeah, it's you're doomed. Quite possibly, if not certainly. I mean, that's the best way to put it. I mean, really. I mean, so it's just and Dan, of course, you know, we all I hope are human beings with compassion and pity, but also practically speaking, it's not good because these strains. It's a double mutant strain in India to Modi's defense, which is very contagious, and these strains can come back to the West and to the United States too. So it's in all of our interest to lend a helping hand and to get this under control as quickly as possible. Because if it comes to the US, then it'll be to the detriment of all of us.
So before we take questions, there's got to be a lot of smart, scientific, intelligent people in India.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you know a lot of them,
Yeah.
the scientists and the academics, and what are they doing? I mean, is the scientific community having any influence at all against this current administration?
That's the problem, Dan. As I said, a supposed COVID task force, which was meant to meet and advise the government, didn't have a single meeting in February or March. The Indian Medical Association, etc., are now so angry they're issuing public communiques saying you weren't listening to us. So again, this strongman, populist mode, very similar to Trump's way of functioning. I know the best. Other people don't know anything. So-called experts are full of nonsense, and so I'll do what I think to be best because that's the right way.
Yeah, he thinks he has a mandate to just
Yes, the people's mandate, exactly. I reflect the people's will, which is the populist notion. Interestingly, Dan, I was writing a book on Modi and Trump, but then, for better or for worse, Trump left office, so that book is kind of in abeyance. So that's why I studied the underlying dynamics of what propels right-wing populists like Modi and Trump.
Is there a counterpart in India to our Dr. Fauci here? Is there somebody in India who's like known for a...
Not a government scientist, Dan, because they're so afraid of losing their jobs, of being punished or transferred, demoted, that, but as I said, now doctors, etc., from the Indian Medical Association, etc., they are speaking up. Professional bodies are definitely so angry and speaking up, and they're saying, to hell with whatever consequences we face, because this is just beyond imagination.
Well, let's hope. Let's not pray,
Yes.
but let's hope that they're listened to
Yes,
at least.
yes, hopefully.
So before we take questions, anything else on that you forgot to say? Or?
Well, then what I also want to say is that it's complicated. As you said, hundreds of millions of people voted for Modi, not all necessarily steeped in Hindu nationalist ideology, but I do want to make it clear that a major reason, if not the major reason he's in power and why Indian people are suffering, is Hindu supremacism. The notion of we are going to put this guy in office and he's going to make sure the Hindu population is dominant over those pesky, troublesome minorities, namely Muslims and Christians, is a major reason, if not the reason, that he's in power.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a lesson for what might happen with a different religion in our country.
Yes.
Christian nationalism.
Yeah, and it did happen to, obviously with Trump. Absolutely. Yeah.
So we'll take some questions. Thanks for watching, and some of you have been waiting here for questions. And thank you, Lauren Searing, for gathering these questions. So Andy Olilina, I think that's how you say it. Dan mentioned he debated with someone who said astrology only works if you pay for it. Are there any major differences between Vedic astrologers and the megachurch preachers here in the U.S.? Well, in the big picture, it's the same thing. If you want a favor from the powers, from the God, then you come to our church and then you put money in our plate or you donate to our ministry. I think in India, Vedic astrology is a little bit more of a business, isn't it? More like...
Business, and then of course, Dan, they claim to base it on a different foundation which is, the ancient Hindu religion, the Hindu notion of astrology, those kind of, stars and planets and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I prepared for this debate with this fellow from Chennai, really nice guy, I think we would have been friends because he just, although he has these loony ideas, I learned that Vedic astrologers don't say that the stars are controlling you,
Okay.
but that if you read the stars, you see where you are fitting in.
Yes.
It's not like there's some powers from outer space that are like you're a puppet.
Yeah. You learned something from him.
So you can actually, it's almost like looking at a map of where am I in my life kind of a thing. So, it's not like anything's going to be different, is it? They tell you, they advise you whether you should get married this year or whether you should start a business this year.
Yeah.
Or who to marry even, or...
Who to marry, and then at least some of them, and it differs from person to person, I guess they have these charms and amulets and rings for you to wear so that to ward off bad luck.
For a price.
Of course.
Well, I told this guy that there was a study in Pune, in the university there. Is that how you say it? Pune?
Yeah, Pune, yeah.
Professor Nalikar was his name?
Sure.
And they did a scientifically double-blind control experiment of Vedic astrologers who were all eager. There were like 25 of them eager to prove.
Yes.
And it turns out it was nothing more than a coin toss.
So I have to add this,
coin
Dan.
toss.
I have to add this, Dan. Somebody with whom, a group with whom Professor Narlikar is associated is Maharashtra Andhra Nirmulan Samiti, and we have given them the Avijit Roy College
that's
Award.
right,
Yeah,
at
absolutely.
the convention,
So Avinash Patil, the head of the group, came and accepted the award 2 years ago.
So this guy, I told this guy about this study in Pune, and the results of the study, and it was very well done. And I said, so what do you think of that? And he says, well, the study was wrong. So what do you mean the study was wrong? Well, if they didn't get the right results, then the study was wrong.
Wow.
And so
Self-confidence.
So I asked him, okay, so what is your evidence? This is in front of a big university audience. So you say that it works. So what is your evidence that it actually, what is your, controlled experiment? And he said to me, well, I'll tell you my evidence. Last week I got an email from Brazil. That was his evidence.
Yeah.
I said, what? He said, yes, last week I got an email from Brazil.
Yeah.
And I'm going, well, why is that evidence? And the audience was like, what? And he said, well, if it doesn't work, why are people all over the world contacting me for this?
Yeah.
So he thinks the fact that people are coming to him
that logic
is proof that it's working, or they wouldn't be coming to him.
Yeah.
So isn't that, what's the word for that kind of logic? Bad logic.
Yes.
Okay, another question. Danielle Carlson. I remember that Modi hosted that huge Howdy Modi rally for
of course. We spoke about that.
for Trump in Texas.
Yes.
If Modi is against Christians, then why is he supporting Trump?
That's a very good question. The answer to that is that domestic and international politics are different. You see what I'm saying? And I think they are conscious of the fact that any severe anti-Christian moves may be noticed negatively in the United States and the rest of the West. So their anti-Muslim thrust that's why more intense than the anti-Christian aspect of it. That's the best answer I can give. But that's a very good question.
But
very complicated
Modi's
answer.
not persecuting or harassing Christians, is he, in India?
There has been that too, yes.
Has there?
Yes, it's secondary to his going after Muslims, but there has been that too.
But Christians must be a tiny minority.
Yes, that's the thing. It's 2% of the population. So
Mostly over in Mumbai area?
Mumbai area and other places too. And the harassment is much more at the local and the state level. But then again, by people belonging to the Hindu nationalist movement.
Well, maybe it's similar to how the Jews are embracing these evangelicals who are sending money, anti-Palestinian, pro-Israel money.
Yes.
Even though the evangelicals say the Jews are going to hell, there's a political opportunism
Yes,
there
yes,
that
yes,
they
yes.
realize is to their advantage.
Yes.
So maybe with Modi, there's that same kind of political.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, we can put aside these theological differences to get what we want.
Yes,
maybe
from the United States. Yes.
I don't know if that's a good analogy, but there's something.
Yeah.
So another question, Darcy Demos. Is Modi against vaccines? And if so, why? Do vaccines go against the Hindu religion?
To be fair to him, no. There isn't a Hindu nationalist movement that I know of against vaccines. On the fringes, of course, there are these quack cures. The cow again comes in. Exactly. And so the coronal tablet, various elements of the cow, shall we say, I don't want to sort of get too graphic, are thought to have curative properties. Again, that's on the fringes of the Hindu nationalist movement. Otherwise, his government has not sort of, said anything against vaccines. In fact, as I said, India has a lot of vaccine manufacturing facilities, and they were too eager to share them with other countries, which is why there's a shortage back in India. Yeah.
So the word vaccine itself comes from the word for cow. So, and original vaccines, I think, were from the cowpox.
Yes.
You were vaccinated with a bit of a...
That's an interesting bit of trivia. Dan.
But in Hindu theology, it would not be sacrilegious to use a part of a cow.
As I said, on the fringes, yes. Yeah. But to be fair to the Modi government, they have not officially propagated that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, if the cows have curative properties...
yes, exactly. The sutra pick.
Sutra pick. That's a new one. I never heard of that.
Yes.
It sounds like a pick, like a movie.
Yes, like a movie
of the Kama Sutra.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. There has been one some years ago.
Okay. So, any more questions here? Heather Johnson has a question. Does India still have blasphemy laws?
Very much so. Very much so. And blasphemy laws. They have anti-conversion laws, all of that at the state level too, exactly. So very much so. That's the answer. I wish I had looked into more detail as to what the penalties are, etc. I'm not, and I promise I will, maybe for the next time we discuss this, but very much so, yes.
So if a Hindu and a Muslim get married, does that happen? It must happen.
Yes.
Do they have to stay their original religion?
Not necessarily, but they are erecting more and more barriers, especially for Hindus who want to leave the faith. You have to prove that there's no financial inducement, that sort of thing, basically. Yeah, I know, exactly. Then they gave a breathing period before such couples are allowed to marry, which allows interference from the families. You see what I'm saying? So they make it as difficult for interreligious marriages as possible, and now they're going after the non-Hindu member of the couple, again, for coercion or inducement more and more often, especially in my family's home state, led by that cleric.
Can somebody convert into Hinduism, or is it a birth kind of a thing?
It's a very good question, Dan. We are getting into deep theology. You can theoretically, but then where would you be in the whole social pecking order? That's the question, isn't it? You can, and of course the Hare Krishnas. Yes, Dan. I mean, they are all were not born Hindu. No, they are Caucasian Western folks who become Hindu. So theoretically, yes, but practically, that's why Hinduism is a non-proselytizing and non-evangelizing religion.
Is a religion on your birth certificate, on your passport even? Is that a kind of thing? No.
So far, no. I know that for a fact. Again, a secular nation. Supposedly a secular country. Pakistan does that. India doesn't. Yes.
Yeah, it makes sense in Pakistan.
Yes, absolutely. But no, India doesn't, and I hope that they never ever change that. Yeah.
Wow. So is that it for questions? No more questions. Well, then I guess that concludes the show. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Amit
Dan.
Paul. Amit is the Director of Communications at the Freedom from Religion Foundation for what? 5 years? 10 years?
Since 2016 or so. So it's been 5+ years.
5 years, wow.
Yes,
Doing a great job here. And we want to thank you for watching Ask an Atheist. We have other shows you can watch. You can check out our national TV broadcast. It's called Free Thought Matters. It airs on many TV stations around the U.S. on Sunday mornings, which is what we call the Unsermon.
Yes.
And this week on Free Thought Matters, we have two guests, a father-daughter team. They are champions of the First Amendment, Dan Weissman and Debbie Weissman. Debbie was a teenager when they took a significant Supreme Court school prayer case in 1992. In fact, let's look a little bit at this show where Debbie is talking about her motivations in keeping state and church separate.
I am uncomfortable with somebody else's religion being forced on me in a public setting, especially in a public school. Why would I ever want to force my religion on somebody else? It's my religion culturally. It's not my religion as a religion. I'm not a religious person, but I do identify as Jewish, and it's not the time and place, simply put. There's no reason for it. Separation of church and state is very clear and simple to me, and I've never understood why it's complicated for people.
That's Debbie Weissman. You can watch that entire interview on broadcast TV. You can check our website for the stations and the times in your area, or you can actually see it right now on FFRF's YouTube and Facebook channels.
And check out Free Thought Radio, FFRF's weekly radio for the rest of us at ffrf.org/radio. And Dan, I have to make a plug for that show where I was on. If people want to know more background about Modi, May 2019, in the archives, Annie Dory and you interviewed me when Modi came back to power.
That's right.
Yeah, and it should be available.
In May 2019.
May 2019.
So also, if you like what we're talking about, and if you are a free thinker, atheist, agnostic, skeptic, secular humanist, we invite you to join the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Just visit us at ffrf.org. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on FFRF's Ask an Atheist.